Now, over the weekend, I discussed with my fiance the dilemma I had in revisiting the radiation stories that are coming out of Japan, and I was explaining the problem. And I just had a problem with reporting things that I could not confirm, and how everything that I am seeing is a sense of urgency that seems to be to the point of overworn, if you will. And there are other reports out there that are downplaying the urgency as well. So the nuclear question gets answered with unclear information, and it's hard to find balance when we know that we are being lied to about that radiation.
Tokyo Electric has been in denial, trying to downplay the full impact of this nuclear accident. This accident has already released something on the order of 50,000 trillion becquerels of radiation. You do the math. That puts it right smack in the middle of a level 7 nuclear accident. Still less than Chernobyl. However, radiation is continuing to leak out of the reactors. The situation is not stable at all.
England had to face the same problems after the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. And now keep in mind that the Chernobyl disaster took place nearly 3 decades ago, and to this day, the United Kingdom, Norway, Sweden, they've had to review their restrictions on the eating of mutton since sheep have been found to have been contaminated with cesium-137. Scientists have so far found it impossible to determine what level of exposure to tritium constitutes a damaging dose. So this leaves us with the impression that all doses are a risk, and that it is why fear is a natural reaction to any report of radioactive contamination.
Fears are rising in the U.S. that the popular bluefin tuna caught off the West Coast contains radiation.
The Japanese government has been accused in the past of failing to provide full information about the incident and of downplaying the dangers.
The fact that the reactors were in full meltdown, which was known about by the government literally within days of the incident taking place, and was not actually reported in the media for months afterwards, which is almost unthinkable.
Radiation experts believe the real scale of the nuclear disaster will not be known for many decades, as the radiation released during the meltdown is accumulating in the global environment.
You can't get rid of cesium. When it hits a body or a host, it stays. It doesn't go anywhere. Plutonium's the same way. I believe tritium is as well. Strontium. All of these things are particles that come into the host, and they stay forever. There's no washing them out. There's no mitigating them. If those particles decay in the host, the decay hits the DNA. When it hits the DNA, it alters the DNA in the host. If that host has a baby, little lamb, that little lamb has a genetic defect. Now, this isn't all the time, okay? And I need you to hear that as well. This is when that happens. This is what happens.
We represent 51 young sailors, many of whom in their 20s, who have various illnesses. For example, we have a 22-year-old kid who's now blind in both eyes. He has a tumor. He also has leukemia. No one in his family has ever had these kinds of problems before. And the only causation that can be connected to these medical life-threatening issues is their exposure to radiation in this Operation Tomodachi.
We can use an analogy where we say that air travel is also safe, but if there happens to be a plane crash, well, then it becomes a remarkable anomaly, and it's grisly and horrible, and it's a foregone conclusion that there will be a lot of fatalities and property damage assessed by insurance companies. The only problem with that analogy is that planes that crash can be cleaned up and put into the history books as tragic rarities. However, nuclear accidents don't go away, and while they don't remain in the headlines, their effects continue to damage the ecosystem and biologically damage human and animal life. That is a reality.